Информационное сообщение о пленуме Центрального комитета Коммунистической партии Советского Союза.
75 crates.
Basically was serious for like 8 or 9 years, and was in the Boston scene during its like glory heyday. So like Seminole and Esoteric and Acrobatic and Mr. Lift and all sorts of underground folks, you know what I mean? Came up with them. I primarily produced for a kid or a dude named Rex, who is down with Static Selector and a guy named Terminology. You know Static Selector?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For a change.
So this is kind of a funny story. Static, Static's probably like 6 years younger than me. Static grew up in the Boston area, and he was always a hustler. Like at 15, he was throwing shows and stuff, and he was a good DJ at 15. And so my brother and I used to make beats with my brother. My brother and I had our own little, like, we used to call ourselves Soul Searchers. That was like our production team name. And we're like, maybe we should have Static come in the mix and he could be with us. And so he came over to the house and like, we BS, but we found out that he basically is allergic to dogs. We had a beagle. So it was like, it's not going to work out. It's just sort of amusing. And then he went on to like move to New York and become Static Selector, the Static Selector, rather than the local DJ from Boston, So in 2002, I met my wife randomly in Canada, came up to visit, and then I was like, I came back and I went to a show with my buddy Rex in Providence, Rhode Island, and I was just like, I met this girl. I think I'm gonna move up for her. And he's like, you gotta go do that. And I basically left, and I didn't have any equipment. I left. I didn't do any music for like 8 years, which is like 6 lifetimes. And then I just had that itch, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I haven't done it. Like I tried using free software, and then my brother bought me a machine. I helped him move, and it was like, I sort of got back on the horse. And so I've been, making beats off and on now for another 6 years or so, 6 or 7 years, How about yourself?
По поручению Политбюро ЦК пленум открыл и выступил с речью.
I understand this. I can make music like this, and since that, like all my gear is portable because I don't really sit down at home. Like I'd rather go out or hang.
Член Политбюро, секретарь ЦК КПСС.
So you're back.
Yeah, I froze there for a second. That's cool. Yeah, I've never never had the portable thing, so I've always been sort of tethered, either hardware wise or software wise. Back in the day, like in the early 2000s, I was very intimidated about going from hardware to computers. Wasn't very good with computers. Even now, I sort of feel like whenever I update something, I'm holding my breath about what's going to happen. You know what I mean? And like my file paths, I'm sure, are like spaghetti. Like I don't even like to think about it. In fact, I don't even want to show you my screen. Like I'm one of those assholes that their desktop is. I only use the desktop, so it's like there's 800 icons here. It's like bad news. But like my thing now is like, other than this year, normally I'm slow from like September through like March. So like up until I bought the business, it's like I'm gonna make like 3 beats a day. You know what I mean? And that just doesn't happen this year. As you can imagine. So, when there's I don't know about you, but there's definitely like an absence makes the heart grow fonder. So like, I don't ever listen to rap anymore. And it's not that I don't like rap. It's just like, I'm 46. So, it doesn't speak to me as much as maybe it used to when I was 25. That's that. And then like I have 2 small kids. I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old.
Cool.
So it's kind of hectic here. So like, I like to listen to good music. So it's like listening to both ZZ Top as well as classical music. Like rap isn't really like 7-year-old friendly. You know what I mean? So anyway, when I listen to stuff now, it's like I can't not listen for loops. Like, I don't know how you're wired, but it's like, I have a hard time just enjoying music for its own sake, really. Like, I either have to keep it low, and if I'm cooking food and kind of not really pay attention, or if it's loud enough for me to hear it, I can't not listen for loops. You know what I mean? Like samples. It's a little bit like it's an
Definitely.
affliction. Yeah.
Definitely. Like the once I started actively working on beats, everything automatically became like a probable source material. Everything you listen to is like, oh, that's a nice, there's a nice loop.
Yeah. So it's funny. So, it's what's the right way of putting this? Like, now when I sit down to do a beat, I'm usually like, it's normally when the kids have a nap on the weekend. So it's like I got 45 minutes to do music while it's quiet. And so, when my brother and I would make beats, I was usually, I didn't experiment that hard. Like, I didn't reach. I also didn't fail much. So a lot of my beats are sort of like on a scale of 1 to 10. I would say they were like between 5 and 8. Like they're all solid and pretty good. And my brother had more time, and he would experiment more. So sometimes he would get those like multi-record chops and like, what did you do here? And he would get, he'd make a beat that was a 9 or 10, but then he would also like make a beat that was like a 2. Like, did you have a stroke when you made this? Like, what happened here? You know what I mean? And so we were pretty good foils because, when I wasn't making a beat, he'd make a beat and vice versa. We were sharing the equipment. But now when I don't have as much time, it's like, I have this comfort zone, and I wish I had more time to experiment more. Like, what some people doing in Sidechain, like with sound design, and you know what I mean? Like, doing sample packs and stuff. Like, I would love to have the free time because I can't play anything. I'm just bang keys. So that doesn't sound good. That doesn't sound good. You know what I mean? Like, it would take me 6 hours to come up with 2 minutes that would sound okay. And I don't have the time to do that. So I just wish I did, And I know that there's that machine. I just haven't really figured that out. So like, I've been using Scalar. Like, if I get a nice loop, I'll try to have the note detection for chords in Scalar. And then I'll say, okay, it says this is a C major, whatever. And I'll try taking those MIDI notes and dragging them, and then say like, does that sound all right? And then maybe if I tune the piano up or down for the sample, like maybe I can get it to go. But it's still a lot of like trial and error. You know what I mean? So.
My impression is that it is for all guys entirely. It's like you're just seeing what sticks. Nobody, or at least I haven't experienced this yet. Maybe like you need to ask people, but it seems like people just try things out, and if it works, it works, and if not, they scratch the idea and start something new. Actually, this is an like, how do you work on beats? Like, do you you work a little on them and then you return to them after a while?
It's funny. So like, when I try to release stuff, which is not very often anymore, but like when I try to release something, normally I try to have a theme to it, like some angle to it, rather than just here's 10 beats. So like, I had an idea. Actually, I did this 3 years in a row. I did a beat tape series that was, I'm trying to think what the name of it was, but it was basically like the Oscars. So every year when the best soundtracks were announced for the Oscars, it would be like 5 soundtracks. They would announce it on February 1st, and then the awards would come out like at the end of the month. So in that 1 month, I would take those soundtracks and try to make a beat tape out of just those samples with me playing them. You know what I mean? With the idea, like, not that anybody ever listened to them or would know, but like, oh, okay, like I'll forward you some stuff, like the Star Wars theme, when like the first reboot Star Wars, I think, was nominated for an Oscar. I made a number of beats with some of those, and it's like you could hear them. Oh, that was from that commercial, but they were trap and they were underground. You know what I mean? And I played some synths over them. And so the idea was to try to have like an angle, so that way if somebody listened to it, they could sort of tell that I had some skill to it. You know what I mean? Or there was an overarching theme. So another thing I thought about doing was like a beat tape series like Vices. So one was like cigarette based, gambling based, liquor based. You know what I mean? So making beats that sounded good with like, you know, vocal movie clips of various scenes involving gambling. And so I did one of these 2 years ago. Actually, I was on quarantine, and I like did it at my in-laws' house while I was quarantining, and then I never released it because it was like it just didn't sound right. You know, it just sort of sounded like it could have sounded better. But like again, trying to find that angle, you know what I mean, for the project. So with that in mind, if I have a project in mind, I'll like listen to samples first and like squirrel them away. And then when I sit down, it's like, okay, I know if I'm working on the gambling record, I know I've put those to the side for gambling things, and then I'll find something like, I don't know why this was any good. That was a dumb choice. Okay, maybe that's good. And I'll take the samples, and usually what I'll do is like I'll get I'll get the sample and like a 2-bar loop or a 4-bar loop, whether it's a loop or chops, and then I go find the drums to find drums that work with it. And
what
then
does it mean? Sorry, no, finish the.
Yeah, and then I just try to fill it out. So like from my perspective, if I have like a 4-bar loop that I've chopped or whatever, then what I'll start doing is like, okay, how can I do a bridge? Okay, how am I gonna keep this interesting for more than just that 4-bar loop? You know what I mean? So
and you mentioned drums, like drums that fit. What's the process there? Like what?
Well, so honestly, you know, if I have like, I'll have the loop and then I'll go find the drums. And basically, I'm just looking for drums that sound good. So like, you probably know this. It's like really dope drums can make a whatever sample knock, but a really good sample will suck if the drums suck. You know what I mean? Like bad drums will detract, great drums will improve things. So like to some degree, I spent a lot of time trying to, like for me, stuff that's like a thump that's got a little bit of liveness, you know, like when I program them slightly live sounding or I don't even know how to put it. And then I tend to lean towards sort of like firecracker snares, you know, like, you know, just personally. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but I also do a lot of layering. So like I'll take snares and I'll layer 3 snares on it. Yeah.
So you do that, and is it actually like, do you take like this traditional way of like having a break that you chop up?
Oh yeah, something. Yeah. Well, yeah, or like recently, because now with the interwebs, like you can find any break anywhere. You know, like I'll take a break, rearrange it a little bit, and then I'll have that run as a loop, and then I'll throw a heavier kick underneath it. I'll find a better snare to fill it out, and then maybe another hi-hat. So that way it's like that break is playing underneath it and filling out the kick and the snare that, you know, like that I played over it.
Yeah.
It's funny, actually, I saw a thing on the Discord. Did you see this? It might have been Burnaby. He was saying that Shop Goodwill has music instruments.
Hi, I'm
okay, put here.
So how do you dig? Like, do you like dig vinyl? Do you dig electronically? Like, and what do you generally are attracted to?
Everything. So I'm this dude who is like not married to any approach in general. So I have like, we have if vinyl, I like hitting the flea markets, and we have a great one in Bonn, or at least like recently there was a session because Corona was 2 years of nothing. And this is like, yeah, I just started going on YouTube and finding stuff there.
С его именем связаны отеческая забота.
I used to, when I was younger, we had these rules, you know what I mean? It's like, so if we're making beats from the 90s, it was like, we're not sampling from the 80s because it's too recent, you know what I mean? So we'd only sample from the 70s. And then it was like, at the time, we never looped. It's like only chop stuff because you got to hide it. You did all, you know, these arbitrary constraints, you know, like, and now that I'm over them, I hear other people talk about it. Like, I only sample drums from records, and it's like, I hear you, dude, but you know, like, you're only speaking to the 1% of people who give a shit. You know what I mean? And like, ultimately, does your shit knock? Like, does it sound good? That's the important thing. Like,
how do you get, like, do you get stuck in the process? Like, do you have those moments? And
yeah,
how do you...
I definitely have like ruts. I mean, there'll be like, you know, almost like veins, you know, when you're going, you know, like miners, you know, they find a vein of gold in the ground. It's like, I'll hit a vein and it's like, oh, I just made 4 dope beats in like a weekend. Like, oh, look at me. And then I'll hit a vein. I'm like, fuck, I made 3 crappy beats. Like, what's wrong with me? You know what I mean? It like seems to ebb and flow. And I don't know what, you know, I have no real, I don't have a line on why that is yet, you know. So here, actually, like, so did you see the new James Bond movie? Okay,
I haven't seen like the last 3 of them, probably, or 4 even.
Well, yeah, my wife and I like finally watched the movie together for the first time in quite a while. And so we watched the new James Bond movie, and there's a scene in which Q, the guy who comes up with all the gadgets, is like making dinner, and there's this funky music playing in the background, and it's like, what the fuck is this? This is kind of cool. So my brother saw it, and he's like, if you were like me, wondering what Q was listening to in the background, it's this. And he found it. I don't know whether he Googled it or what, but anyway, I'm gonna put it in the chat here. Put it in the chat, actually.
Follow that car.
And the main reason I bring this up is like, A, it's really dope, but B, I like just looked at it on Spotify. She's got like 60 albums, and I've just like just started listening to them, and they're all kind of funky. You know, it's not like the end all be all, but it's just kind of funky. It's just weird. It's like weird Indonesian opera singing with like an Asian influence or something, you know. Or anyway, I get, you know what I was thinking. So like that would be something. So if I stumbled across somebody, like a new person, like to sample, and I'm like, oh, this is pretty dope. That's how I could see like stumbling into 3 or 4 dope beats, because it's like they got a whole new field, you know what I mean, I've never tapped, and you know, I in theory could go to town. That'd be one way to explain that.
And the downs, like, do you how do you take them? Like, is it what do you make of them? How do they feel to you?
Oh, they're cringeworthy. I like, you know, I don't like, I'll listen to them, and often a lot of them are like, there will be 1 or 2 elements that are off. So it's often not like, oh my God, this whole thing is a hot mess. It's like, how did I not know that note was off? You know what I mean? Like, what was I, you know what I mean? And so, and hearing that will be the type of thing that like I can't get past. And the question is, was the overall beat, usually the overall beat is not dope enough to go back and redo that 1 note, because if that 1 note is off, it wasn't dope enough. If that makes sense, you know what I mean? Like, if it was dope enough to go back and redo, I wouldn't have fucked it up, if that sort of makes sense. You know what I mean?
Well, like, I feel quite similar, I think, in terms of like, if it's fucked up, I will not try to fix it. Because, or at least to me, it seems like those things are the experiments. So whenever you have like a sure shot and a nice sample and you kill it, it's almost like it's almost like an easy thing to do, to finish that beat and feel happy about yourself. But moments when it doesn't work out is where actual experimentation happens, where you're actually trying to make something shitty sound less shitty. So you try techniques, and you try like, oh, well, maybe it's this and maybe it's that. And at least I take them as like,
well, yeah, so like, you know, talking about my brother and how he would experiment more than me. So that there's a term that we would use, which was sort of like trying to wrestle the sample in a submission. So like, there's some samples that just are so dope that it's obvious and they're not hard. You know what I mean? Like, and then there are other ones, it's like, there's something here, and you're on the mat, you're on the wrestling mat, and you're trying to pin the sample down into being dope, and it's a struggle. And like sometimes when you can do that, I would say that often that's where you like hit those that's really dope, because you've taken something that wasn't obvious and you've turned it like, you get a shitty record at the flea market for $1, and you take some sample that's just okay, and then you like wrestle it in the submission, and it's like, I made that happen. You know what I mean? I made that, right?
Absolutely.
And then you're making then you're hitting that sweet spot, the upper end of the sweet spot. But on the flip side of the coin, if you can't wrestle it properly, it sounds like a car crash. You know what I mean? It's like, oh.
And did you develop techniques that help you kind of almost like a go-to when it's not obvious what to do with the sample, and then you just do your Aikido move, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah. Like, are those the easy submissions?
Yeah, it's funny, actually. I don't wrestle samples in a submission much anymore because I don't have the time to do it. You know what I mean? So like when we were younger, my brother and I might spend 3 or 4 hours on a Friday night making a beat. And, we would tap in and out. It was like wrestling. Okay, I'm going to go in and, I'm going to try to do a bass line or whatever, play a bass line. And then, I don't know, you tap in and we go back and forth. And it's like collectively you could wrestle it more. Like I said, now that I get 45 minutes, it's like, I'm trying to get something that I can basically email myself and enjoy in my headphones or something at a later point. So I don't want to take the time to wrestle it. The one, and I'm sure you know this, so like the one thing that like I like to play or add to a sample generally, and coming from the older MC neck of the woods, and now with like so many VSTs that what we would do is basically like if you had a sample, the start of the sample, let's say you had a loop, you would have the loop repeat in an eighth note, dong 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 dong, and then basically you would take a piano note and play C. You try to find the note that was closest to it and have that repeat, and then you lower the levels, and then basically you would tune that one note up or down to try to get in key with the first note of the sample. And then that's how we would, and now weirdly that's how I still do it. So it's like if I find a sample, I'm looking for the note that it's closest to, and then I basically go dong dong dong, and I manually try to tune it to match the tuning of the sample, which is probably idiotic, but that's why often if I play something, it's like, oh, that was off. What were you thinking? You know what I mean?
It's very interesting.
I don't know. It's interesting. Like we're probably similar vintages, right? And it's sort of interesting. Like there's so much knowledge that you can find from the internet now about this, and it was so hard to find anything in the 90s about anything. You know what I mean? So a lot of it was just like trial and error. Trial and error on the records front, trial and error on like equipment front. Like, I think in 91 or 92, I wanted to be a DJ because I thought that's how beats were made. I didn't realize they were just playing records. You know what I mean? And I got a turntable and a mixer, and I'm like, this isn't what I fucking want to do. I want to make beats. It's like just wasted $200 or whatever it was. You know what I mean? Like,
it's nice that you...
В почетном карауле товарищи Андропов, Горбачев, Гришин, Громыко, Куна.
Do you like the machine? You work in machine exclusively, or what was where do you mix down?
Reaper. In Reaper. Yeah.
That's an old school. Isn't it like an old school piece of software?
Well, it's funny you say that. I don't know. I mean, like they still update it, and it's my brother was the one. So he had Pro Tools. We both had Pro Tools, and I didn't find it very user intuitive. And he was one who was like, you should look at a Reaper. It's got a free demo, and you download it, and it's like completely open, and he's like, it's just way easier to use. Okay, and that's been the one of choice. It's just like I'm not some expert at it. It's just like it's way more intuitive than Pro Tools ever was.
Okay.
And it doesn't use, I think Pro Tools has its own ecosystem VSTs, you know what I mean, and like effects. whereas like Reaper can use VST 2 and 3, I think. So it's like, you know, anything you get cracked from the internet will seemingly work in Reaper, which is great. You know? And it's got like time stretch and the whole nine. So anyway, yeah.
Do
like
you
if I got
use the time stretch? Like, do you go back and forth?
no,
Because
not usually. No, I'm normally like I make 95% of stuff in the machine, and then if I'm trying to be serious, I'll bring it into Reaper and try to mix it. But you know, I didn't go to school for mixing. Like, you know, I don't know what I'm doing. So it's like invariably it sounds right, you know.
This one, like this is a staple. Like, I don't know what I'm doing is basically the mantra that I think most of us live by.
Right.
I have no idea.
Drums seems to know what he's doing. I mean, that's for sure, you know.
But he got there, like he
yeah, that's true.
That's an interesting part, or like it's very interesting to see how people get intentional through being unintentional for a whole while. Like, do you do just exploratory rounds?
No,
where you just...
not as much as I'd like to. You know what I mean? Like the amount of like stuff. So like I have what is it? I have like the Arturia. It doesn't even matter. I have so many instruments. You know what I mean? Like compared to what I had 10 years ago. So like 3 symphonies over, you know what I mean? And it's like more at my fingertips than I could ever imagine. And like I'm using probably 2% of it. It's like
which ones? What are you like? What are you?
I like really like Rhodes organs. You know what I mean? There's a Prophet VST that I have that I like. There's a New York grand piano that I like. But again, I can't play chords, so it's like I got to use scalar, start there, and you know, maybe if I can find, I probably have half a dozen semi compositions that I'll try to send you for shits and giggles. You know what I mean? You might find kind of interesting. But yeah, I think, you know what I would like. Like, do you get down with Philip Glass? You heard Philip Glass? He's a composer. So like he did like the Candyman soundtrack. He did a Dracula soundtrack. He does a lot of movie stuff. He's very minimalist. But he's influenced by Indian music. So it's like all of these rhythms. And so everything is like a fucking loop. It's just like, it's a loop. So many loops. So many loops. I strongly suggest you listen to Philip Glass. Like, you'll love it. So like I have this fantasy at some point of like having the free time and like trying to compose music. Like, you know, like whether it be sampleable music, or even like trying to do classical music and just banging keys and sort of like, okay, that sounds good. You know what I mean? And like I think so like when I was younger, I wanted to have a record, you know, like have a joint, have it pressed on vinyl, that, you know, and that was like my low bar. That's what I wanted. And that happened, which is great. But my new low bar is kind of like, I would like to spend the time to have like a composition, like a classical composition, and feel proud enough to play it for people and not be embarrassed. I think that would be pretty cool. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah.
And I'm not even like, and I don't, you know, it's not like, again, I think it's almost like a, you know, rap has a bad rap. You know, it's like the ugly stepchild of music in a lot of ways, certainly for people like our parents' generation. And so when I was younger, you know, trying to chat with my dad and be like, oh, you should listen to this. Oh, listen to this. Like, and he, you know, I don't know about that. And he's like, oh, I like that. You know, like that sounds like Charles Mingus or, you know, whatever. And trying to find validation through music. You know what I mean? And I think for me, I would love to be able to do that on that type of level. You know, like I know I can make beats, you know, like, you know, on any given Sunday, you know, I feel like I could make a decent beat. But that would be the next level where I don't know whether I could do it. And it would be great to be able to do it and feel completely proud and confident about it.
That's your leaving of comfort zone, so to speak. Is it?
Yeah, it might be, right. I
Mhm.
mean, right. Like instead of making beats in the 5 to 8 range, try to do something different and reach for a 9 or 10, and probably not reach it, probably have a bunch of terrible ones and then eventually reach it. That would be probably,
Mhm.
I don't know.
Lance talked to, like, I had a chance with Lance, and he mentioned that his main approach is like figuring out the keys, which, this is the composer talking. He's like, yeah, the chord shift doesn't feel right, and so, and I was like, I feel envious all of a sudden.
Right.
Because
I think it's also interesting, not to cut you off, but I was going to say, like, that there are spheres, like particularly in sidechain, there's so many people that have different influences. So it's like, you get a really eclectic cross section of ears. You know what I mean? Like really kind of like that's what we all have our different ear. You're attuned to this type of sample or sound. I'm attuned to this sample or sound. And it's sort of interesting when we sit on sessions to like RTO is going to hear something in a certain way and take it in a certain direction that I wouldn't necessarily, but it's dope because it's like his own take on it. You know what I mean? And it almost like pushes the envelope a little bit. So like, I don't know. I think it like that's one of the things I really like about Sidechain. It's like it's not everybody trying to do Mad Lib. It's like everybody, most of the people there know what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like most of the people there have experience, but they've all carved off their own little sound. You know what I mean? And some of them may be certain hues of a certain genre. Some of them are completely different genres. And like Radic does some crazy shit.
Incredibly, a shout out to him for like.
And it's and it's weird for me to say this because I came back in such a convoluted and shitty way, but it's a very supportive environment. So like you can have basically like 50 people with maybe 43 different flavors. There's some overlap, but like 4 or 40 different flavors amongst the 50 people, but everybody is supportive of each person's individual like take or flavor on something. You know what I mean? And I don't know. It's like what I wasn't around for the very beginning. Like I think Sidechain started like in April, and I came on board like in September, October. So there was already like, there was already like a lot of people that were doing it. Like 20, 25 people were doing it who would come to the video sessions. You know what I mean? But when I came, it was like very supportive, and it's just sort of interesting. I don't know whether it's drums. I mean, it all comes out of drums because he's a very inclusive guy and a very positive person. It's just sort of interesting that somehow translated across the spectrum. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I don't know. He's created this environment remotely. I think it's pretty incredible. So it's one thing for us to all get like in the same room and vibe off each other and whatever, but it's another thing to sort of do it remotely. It's like, I don't know. It's a real testament to him.
Go get you one of them cheap ass guitars, man. You're gonna go crazy with that shit.
He created the room where you can ask questions and not feel dumb about yourself, which is super important. I think this try ideas, play the music. Like I
appreciate this conversation.
I appreciate y'all.
Yeah. And you sound a lot like my therapist, dog. I appreciate
it. The sessions used to be 4 hours, and now they're 13 hours or 16 hours. You know what I mean? Like
coming back to the topic of beats and challenges of the like, do you have a routine that you develop?
No.
Like, do you have
no.
Like a daily? Is it something that you do on a daily, or is it?
No, I wish it was, but I'm like too busy working at the moment, unfortunately. So no, but when last year it would have been, it was like and I don't do well in the evenings. Like I can't do music at night anymore. So it's like, I can basically, I would come down, make a beat from like 8:40 in the morning until 10:30,
Mhm.
and then off to the races, and I would, get some work done or whatever. But it was like I could bang something out pretty quickly in the morning, you know. Whereas I just, my schedule, like, so it's 9:30 here. I normally go to bed like 8:30 or 9, like I read before I go to bed, and then I get up at like 5:30. So it's like my schedule is geared towards the morning rather than at night. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah, like my wife Claire will be like, "Oh, you're gonna do some music tonight," and it's like, I don't often do that. Like if I'm gonna take a personal night, it's like I'm gonna watch TV or something. I just don't. I don't know. I don't have the reservoir of energy to do it. Why are you? You must be a night owl because like you're running late with us or on the side chain, so you must run late generally, right?
I have this like deep feeling that I need to pack more into the day, I'm the idiot who is not considered with the long term of the lifespan. But I haven't found a way to work around that, at least.
How old are your kids?
8 and 4. So
Yeah.
they go to bed. My wife is reasonable. This is where I like, okay, let's go. Let's do something.
And again, it's like we were talking earlier, it's like to each their own. Like, whatever your workflow works for you, that's awesome. It's like, it's just over time, I've gone from being a night owl to now like a morning person,
Mhm.
And like our kids, like, I don't, my son would get up at 6:10 every morning, like every, like Swiss timepiece, and he would sleep in and it would be 6:40. So it's like getting up early every day. So this tells you where I'm at with my relationship with my wife. My wife was like, I'd really like for Christmas a new toilet. Just we had this toilet, like, it'd run, like at the bowl, never like whatever. So I bought a toilet and I had got a guy to come in and install it because I'm not mechanical. And I was gonna do it like surprise her, and she didn't go to work that day. So I had to give like FYI, Ron's coming over to install the toilet. She's like, "Oh, this is great." Anyway, the kids have been playing in the box of the toilet in the hallway, like just, "Hey, Dad, can you push us against the wall?" And so they would crawl into the toilet box and then just push it against the wall, and the two of them would be in there, like, with a flashlight, talking to themselves. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's cute to see them interacting and and starting to get along.
You spoil yourself once you can afford all, and you know it as well. Like today, people ask me like, "What do you want for Christmas?" Nothing. I can like whatever I need, I get.
You get for myself, right? And I don't know about you, but like I can't. Sorry, I don't mean it. I'm like way more inclined to get something for anybody else, like just the way I'm wired, than myself. Like I wear the same lousy Walmart sweatshirt, like. So the one thing I treated myself to actually, because I have these like generic bad headphones because I lost my AirPods this summer, and I treated myself to new AirPods for Christmas. So that's my only, that's it. So I've spoiled myself. Other than that, like I don't really care, Well,
Doesn't do
you don't
that
appreciate, you don't appreciate what you have. You know what I mean? You don't appreciate what other people don't have in the same way. Like I think it co-ops, that's the right word, like your perspective a little bit, so like, I mean, my wife is similarly more attuned to some of this stuff than I am. Like my wife's way more green than I am. Like I'm not like burnt oil, but like she's just, more aware of that stuff. And so like one of the things she's mentioned to me is like, we should give a couple things from Santa and then we give other stuff. And so that way it's not like Santa gave all this stuff and then some classmate, their Santa doesn't give them all that stuff. It's like by separating it, you're creating enough space so there's some equity between the experience of each child's Christmas, if that makes sense.
Mhm,
Does that
mhm.
make sense? You know what I mean?
Mhm,
So,
mhm,
like,
mhm.
there are rich parents and there are poor parents. How do you explain that Santa gave somebody all this stuff and Santa gave this stuff? You know what I mean? So, okay, here's a couple things that Santa give you. You know what I mean? And like, if there's anything else, then we'll give it. You know what I mean? And I don't know.
That's cool.
It's more
That's
nuanced than me. Like I'm not like I'm a blunt instrument, so I wouldn't quite, I wouldn't quite think it that way. But it's like that makes a lot of sense.
shout out to wives. They
Yeah,
was
because
aligned. They
yeah,
yeah. I think I'd be completely lost without that woman.
yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, it's also like the most important decision in life to some degree. I mean, it's like who you partner with.
Плюс 2 минус 3.
So my wife had this thought. She's like, we were in the hospital cafeteria, and she's like, this may sound strange, but I think we need to do a hierarchy here, and we need to sort of we have to look after ourselves, like as individuals, and make sure we're happy, and then look after our relationship, and then in turn look after the kids. And if we do what we want, so to speak, and are happy as individuals, we will be better as a partnership. And if we make sure we take the time for us as a couple, we'll be better parents for the kids. And her logic was inverting it, and sort of like, we need to make sure we're happy, and then we're happy as a couple, and then we'll be better parents. You know what I mean? And more
Shout
likely
out to her. I
well,
want
to me,
you to
like, I
hug
got it right
her.
away. Yeah, I got it right away. I'm like, that you're totally right. So I bring this up because it was like at certain points over the last 5 years, I did an EP with a rapper from Boston, and she was going to have a release party, and it was like, she's invited me down, and she's like, you should go because music's important to you. You know what I mean? Like, that's important to you. It's part of our hierarchy. You should go down to that release party. So I like flew down to Boston and went to this release party, and like I didn't have any real reason to go, but it was fun to go, and right. And so like my wife's thing, she played soccer, she played football, so like she played for Arsenal, believe it or not. And her thing is like getting exercise. She needs to get exercise regularly. If she does that, she's in a better mental health state. You know what I mean? So these are sort of things that we know about ourselves as individuals, and try to encourage each other so we're better individually, and then as a couple to be better parents, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I 1,000%. I agree on every of those levels.
Right. But it's like,
Seems-
she had the insight, not me. I just was like, yeah, you're right. We should do that.
It's because they are smart. they're actually like.
But that like works also like for business interests, you know what I mean? Like career goals, like having a partner who maybe they don't share your vision, but can see your vision and want to encourage you to, you know what I mean? Like it's important. And it's like, I can think of, I don't know, I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but you know what I'm getting at. It's like, it's so important. Yeah, I don't know. I think of like some of the people I dated back in the day, like weren't healthy relationships, really dodged a bullet.
What's like, how do you explore new things as a like, well, you
No, that's a good
personally
question. We don't do anything anymore because
it's family and
it's family, and
no, but
we're busy,
it sounds like
but yeah, I think it's basically like trying to, it's like almost like concentric circles, concentric circles. And ideally, you meet somebody and you overlap with them a lot. And then as you get older, the circle's going to expand or grow or whatever. And hopefully you continue to have a significant overlap, and not overlap. You know what I mean? So like, Claire's folks have been together for like 40 years, and they're sweet people, but they have very little in common anymore. And they're still together, but they don't really share any interests. And you just sort of hope that over time you do, you know what I mean? And so part of that is like, I'm not Mr. Green, but I support your green, you know, like you being green. Like, cool, if you want to, you know? Yeah.
This is what I mean by in terms of explorations, or how you explore new areas that keep you interested and occupied, and therefore you start sharing this new stuff.
Oh yeah, I definitely play. Yeah. I'll play music if I feel good about it. I'll be like, want to come down and listen to what I made? Okay, yeah, no problem. She'll come down the stairs and then she's like, okay, yeah, okay, I hear what you're saying here, you know. And then sometimes she'll be like, I think, you know, like I've been trying to explain like the slappy drums thing, you know, where they're slappy, and I'm like, yeah, no, they're supposed to be offbeat, but they're on beat. And she's like, yeah, no, I don't think you figured it out yet. You know, like, you know, and I've told her, I'm like, I gotta find an example so you can hear what I'm talking about, so you can hear what I'm trying to do, so it doesn't sound as, but obviously I'm not doing it right. You know what I mean? It's like, and there's also, as you know, like there's certain things like you could intentionally program something off as part of the thing, you know, like not off in a live way, like off, but not jarringly off, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
No,
like,
I do under like
intentionally off. And by it being intentionally off, it's a thing, sort of, you know, like I can think there's a drum, there's a beat I made, and it's got one kick that comes in, and it comes in not early, it's like early, you know what I mean? And it's just like, wait a second, is that right? But then it keeps moving, and in my mind, it's like, that's all right.
Makes sense.
In her mind, she's like, that's fucked up. You know what I mean? Like,
that is super.
I only share the stuff that I think is interesting. So it's like, in theory, it's past my smell. Like, my nose is so stuffed up. It's funny for me to say this, but like, it's past the smell test of like being worthy for somebody to hear. You know what I mean? And I don't share every joint with her, just the ones that I think are kind of interesting or different or good. You know what I will say that she'll be like, she'll know the ones that I played versus the samples, and she always prefers the samples. She just like, the played stuff sounds too regimented, or, you know, too robotic, and not soulful enough. So I do know that about myself, you know what I mean? And like her critique.
And she tells you about this as well?
Oh yeah, she'll just like, it's okay, you know, just a little too robotic, or like whatever, you know what I mean? Like, you're wrong, but that's okay. I appreciate that.
It's something like, do you have anything that like pisses you off about producers that you would like to tell them more often?
That's a good question. Like, it's, you know, we're influenced by everything we hear, right? And so part of me would be like, you're making, I know what you made here. You made a RZA beat, which would be pigeonholing it, right? But it's also like, to some degree, I'm going to use sort of a mixed metaphor. It's like painting, you know, different types of beats or different type of painting styles. So it's like, you painted a RZA, you know what I mean? And it's not that you're necessarily copying RZA. It's like, you just did that today. It's like, if you're good enough, you can paint in different styles, right? And I lean towards a certain, you know, like my, like camp trucking, like sidechain, you know, we all, there are styles that we gravitate to naturally. And then the people that have more experience, they might be able to paint 2 or 3 different other colors or styles, you know what I mean? And so when I would think like, oh, you know, I'm listening to something like, oh, I know what this, you know, this is a Derringer beat, you know what I mean? Like, okay, or Rock Marciano, like, okay, I know what this is. There's a tendency for me to dismiss it, but knowing that like I do the same thing, I paint different colors too. So it's like exploring, you know what I mean? Like, and you know, and I guess there's also like the competition of things, you know. It's like, I didn't mean to come off as prickish or dickish as we did that first session back. It's like supposed to be good-hearted in nature. You know what I mean? But like ultimately, rap and hip hop is like competitive based. Like that's where rap battles. You know what I mean? Like DJ battles, b-boy battles. They stem from conflict. Originally. And so there's always, like I don't know about you, but like if I hear something, I think like, okay, I'm comparing this to where maybe I would have taken it, or okay, this is sort of in the vein of this other beat. Is that beat better than my beat? You know what I mean? Like there's some of that comparison and stuff, and all in the vein of total. I mean, like very truthfully, all in the vein of like supporting. You know what I mean? This is all just happens in my head. But under the vein of like that's awesome, and often being like fuck, how did this happen? You know what I mean? Like this is like a lot of Radic, like Radic stuff I find really
the best I I'll be feeling like yes I am.
And it's not stuff that I would necessarily make, but like how did he make it? You know what I mean? Like confused a little bit, like challenged. It's almost like I feel pushed out of my comfort zone because I can't quite figure out what's happened there, and that's a good thing. You know what I mean?
Ассамблеи ООН Имре Холлей заявил, что мир потерял великого.
Might have to do something different. So, it's like, from my perspective, feeling the push and pull of like being pushed and pulled in different directions, and being like, well, I know where that direction is. I don't know what direction that is, and feeling both confident about where I am relative to those things, and also feeling unconfident because I'm being pulled and pushed in different directions sonically. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not like when I say competition, I don't mean like, okay, there's a leaderboard and a hierarchy. It's almost just like, I want to get better, and it's like competition with myself, weighing how somebody did something. Would I do it the same way or not? Like, fuck, I wish I could play guitar. That'd be pretty cool to add that to a track. You know what I mean? Or maybe I'd add a track, I'd add guitar, but I don't know if I would add it that way. That I don't know. And those things, those incremental, every time you hear a joint, like you get pushed in different directions, and I think it expands the mind a little bit. Like I've never done mushrooms. I know we had a mushroom conversation, but it's like you open up the horizons a little bit to things that might be new and different. So
absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know. I just wish I had more time to do music. It's like when I'm not doing music, I'm thinking about music. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Maybe I need to just do one of these like pin challenges where it's like I take 60 minutes and make 5 beats. I know like a while ago there was like I'm doing 15-minute beats and I'm gonna see what I can get done in 15 minutes. And maybe that's the way to do it. So that way it's like I get more momentum. You know what I mean? Like start to put more output. And just by output, like just for my own listening pleasure, you know what I mean? And for like Thursdays. So it's like, since the last time I was on, I sent you that one joint, and then I've messed around a little bit with what you sent me, but I haven't done anything else. So it's like in 2 weeks, I've only sort of done 2 things. It's like, it's not that much. You know what I mean? It's frustrating. And I'm like monologuing. But also like to do more like remixes, like, I've like Tractor, I used to be able to do the wikis and the scratches and stuff. It's like, I'd like to have a workflow that was less machine, Reaper, then do like finishing with acapellas. I wish there was it's probably Ableton, like one integrated cohesive thing where you can sort of do it all on that one area. You know what I mean? That one playground. I feel like it would be quicker. I don't know.
So you are into this, like, it seems like you like speed or getting stuff done quicker.
Well, no, that's like, or like, if I had an output, so like if I were serious about putting stuff out, like I don't think I've ever, like, let's say do the opposite, like almost like the slow food movement. Be like, okay, I'm going to take 3 hours to do a beat and see what I could do with it in 3 hours, and whether I sit down and spend 45 minutes today, but I'm going to come back to it and spend 45 minutes and see what happens. I've never done that. Like I've definitely made beats in 15 or 20 minutes, but you know, like DJ Shadow, I don't know if you ever got down with DJ Shadow shit. So like, you know, layers, and he would make 5-minute songs. You know what I mean? Like this day and age, that's not really the case. It's like most beat makers make a 90-second beat, you know, and maybe that would be a new way to be challenged. I don't know.
It's you touched on this a minute ago with the business side. I think if you are into business and delivering a product to someone, it just changes. Like the art perspective is like, there is this piece that I need to build, and the business perspective is like, there is this value I need to deliver to someone. It's not about like, business is not about me, it's about you and aligning me and like.
Председательствующий, вице-президент Бундестага Георг Лебер прервал заседание, чтобы сообщить скорбную весть из Москвы.
Do you try to separate those things in your mind? Like, do you deliberately go into the other? Like, you don't want to have any of your business self.
Oh, you mean like by, well, so by business stuff, you mean like running an actual business, or like the business side of music?
The business approach to creating stuff. When I'm doing business, I'm solving something for you in my mind. When I'm making beats, I'm doing something for me. And if it resonates with you, I'm really happy, but I'm not trying to tailor for that reason.
I definitely do that. Like I don't talk about music with anybody except for music people. So like so personally, you know, like very few people know about my rap background or my making beats. It's a secret, and why, I don't know. Maybe because historically I felt like rap was this like ugly stepchild that didn't get the respect it should have, and so therefore I didn't feel comfortable. You know what I mean? Like if you like back in the day, you know, if somebody says I'm working on a book, you can visualize, oh, they're trying to write a book. You know what I mean? And like people have been writing books for 5,000 years. You say I make beats and I'm a beat maker. It's hard for people to visualize what the fuck that means. And then there's all the stereotypes associated with that. You know what I mean? Like, so I've always kept those parts of my life separate. I think, you know, it's hard for me to, like, I don't release enough. I don't like, I haven't released anything in a long time. And I think there's if I were to like open the book, I would say that there's a personal challenge for me. It's sort of like delusions of grandeur, which is sort of like, I know that I'm good and I feel like that I'm good, but I don't want to release something and not have it do anything because it wouldn't meet what my own expectations would be. You know what I mean? Like
75.
Yeah, and it's like it's an irrational thing. So it's like I know that and I would also say there's now an age component. So, you know, I took a long hiatus, and when I came back and started doing music, I was like 38, which felt very old by rap standards and beat making standards, which is kind of funny. And so the idea of like being whatever, you know, like wrestling with the age thing, wrestling with the rap and hip hop has never gotten the respect I feel like it should. And then dealing with my own personal baggage that I bring to sort of unrealized successes. You know what I mean? Like I came up in the Boston scene with all these people that like now do music professionally as working musicians, and sort of feeling like I missed that train. And so don't want to release stuff and not have it do as well as it should have. So therefore I don't release something.
Like I feel almost frightened to not make beats daily, because I know like if I fall out of this routine, I will digress and I will be stressed to catch up. You know, therefore like I force myself to sit down on a daily, be it 5 minutes. I get stressed over this because then this thing happens, and it becomes my whole team laughs at me. We released a prototype of a website because they were just like, Nikolai, you can't finish this. Somewhere there is the answer. Instead,
северных границ Израиля. Выступая на пресс-конференции, президент Рейган исключил любое сокращение американской помощи Израилю.
Коротко о спорте. На Всемирной шахматной олимпиаде...
I don't have the answer. You know, like it's like so. It's what's interesting is like we would be yin and yangs of each other here. I mean, we're suffering from the same thing on opposite sides of the coin to some degree, right? And it's like whenever I meet somebody, I'm like, just put stuff out. Put stuff out. Like only good stuff happens. Put stuff out. Like I know that. Like I know it rationally, logically. I encourage people to do it. I just don't do it. And there's a weird impasse. And it's like, my nose is so stuffed. I have like 800 beats on this computer, probably, or 500. It's like, they're not all great. But it's like, I could easily just, take 10, put them out, take 10, put them out, and, it's, I don't know.
We play ourselves deliberately.
Oh, should I do a video for this? Oh, there's always an excuse. And I just, I've shared my excuse. Like I don't know, we like to release stuff regularly because it's like, it's a scratch like the itch and I'm going to keep doing it. It's not like I've only been doing this for a year. You know what I mean? It's like I've been doing this for now fucking almost 30 years, give or take. So it's like, it's not going anywhere,
I put shit out all the time. And I feel happy about myself putting it out. I regret it a couple of months in because most of it is shit.
Yeah.
But then the mass of it works. It does.
Right with the thoughts to my brain summon and I heard our waist band-aid.
I was gonna advocate, try to argue, but it's like, I know all those reasons. I know them.
Let's do this.
Yeah, there you go. Right, exactly.
I would leave it at that as a closing word to this incredible conversation. Is like, let's fucking kill this.
Дома Союза.
Yeah.
We're 2021. Okay. You're not fucking around there. All right.
Put it out in the world. This should put enough pressure on each one of us.
Right. Well, that's the thing. That's a good idea, actually. All right.
So let's go. Thank you very much.
All right.
Love and appreciation. 75 crates. I thank you.
Yeah.
На севере до 38 градусов мороза. В Москве облачной погоды с прояснениями. Ветер западный порывистый. Температура 6-8 градусов тепла.